Smart Energy 2025 is just around the corner. The annual renewables event of the year returns to Sydney on April 9 and 10. In the midst of a federal election focused on energy, be amongst key decision makers and 12,000 delegates to showcase your solutions, expand your network, and position your brand for growth. As the Smart Energy Council celebrates its 70th anniversary, there's no better place to be than at Smart Energy 2025. Visit smartenergyexpo.org.au for details.
All right, welcome back to Just Another Solar Podcast with Luke Beattie. That's me, Karl Jensen. G'day, Karl.
Luke, beautiful day here in Melbourne, and I'll save you the trouble of introducing Nigel. He's over in India at the moment.
I think he's back from India. He could be jet lagged. He could be sleeping. He's certainly not on here. So maybe Nigel drop in. We'll just have to wait and see. I can trump you though, Karl. It's rainy and miserable here in Brisbane.
I'm glad to hear it.
G'day, Jess MacPherson. How are you?
I'm good. It's pretty good here in Adelaide as well, I will say. We're got good solar weather here. Not too hot, but, nice and sunny.
Well, the numbers are quite download, Luke. Looking at numbers from ORA, it looks like January and February, the solar industry did 29,000 installs, and we'd normally be rolling on at 26,000 installs a month. Appreciate January's always a bit low, but that's a lot low. A lot of people I'm talking to are telling me that they're not very busy. They're concerned that the upcoming federal election is affecting their sales and the amount of willingness people are to spend any money. Rumours of a battery rebate.
And I'm just going to put a note there. So jump in for an update with the WA battery rebate. There was a roundtable yesterday with the WA government. We spoke last episode about how battery installs in WA have come to a standstill. Lots of solar installs have been deferred or delayed until July 1st. Some of the things I can tell you is that they've put a tender out for the scheme operator. So the operator of the no-interest loans is going to run the battery rebate as well. And a couple of names I've heard mentioned are Bright and Plenty. The other bad news really with this one is that backdating so that people can claim it retrospectively looks like that's not going to go ahead. WA businesses are going to have to face a bit of pain between now and the 1st of July. If you're in WA and you're an installer, now is the time to get your battery accreditation or to make sure your installers are across that. There is potential for a battery booster scheme being announced. Now, in WA, it was almost a given the Labor government was going to get back in, whereas with the feds, as you said, Karl, it is in play. An announcement of a battery scheme is going to have a similar impact, but nationally. Battery installs are delayed, deferred, and potentially solar installs as well. So, Karl, you've said that the industry, the numbers are down. Potentially having that sort of national impact is going to be a massive thing.
On the ground, I've certainly had a few customers who said that they're considering waiting to see what happens here. I think it'll be really interesting to see, because there's so little detail around how this would/could work. Is it going to be in conjunction with some of the state things that are going on? The time you wait to even find out what it's going to look like, you're going to be paying for your electricity. Do you want to leave that money in the hands of your Origin or your AGL or your retailer, or do you want to have the investment in your home or your retailer in general? You can trim it if you want. So it's probably the best time to be getting together with people who've sort of been through this before, the people who've done this in SA, and Plenty was the one who ran our home battery scheme here. So, we've been through the trenches, and we'd love to make sure that people in WA or anywhere else can learn from the hard lessons we had to.
Well, I know of at least 5 companies that are considering moving out of the industry due to this, saying that we don't know if we're going to survive to July.
Does that mean that you couldn't get, say, a hybrid inverter with some solar panels and add a battery to it later?
You can do that, and a lot of the companies, to keep the wheels turning, are suggesting and trying to get their customers to go 2-stage install. But a lot of customers are still saying that they just want the installer to come out once, just wait for the battery rebate, and then they'll get the whole system. So it's a tough one, Karl.
That is a very tough one. I reckon adding a battery to a hybrid system it's a couple of hours work. It's really easy. You could realistically load a guy up with a fair bit of gear. He could go around and do 3, 4, 5 installs in a day if he's just adding a battery. The toughest part's going to be getting rid of all the rubbish.
In a couple of weeks, the Smart Energy Council will have their expo in Sydney on the 9th and 10th of April. There's also the gala, dinner and awards night. And if you haven't booked your tickets yet, you should. And also in the context of an upcoming election where you're going to have politicians, key decision makers and key industry people there. So make sure you come along to that. Now, Karl, I know you've been chomping at the bit to get our guest in here.
One of those guests, Luke, where you get the hairs standing up on your arm. You're thinking, wow, this is really exciting. We've got a real industry legend today.
Yep.
It's going to be one of those great episodes.
Peacock founded Solar Quotes over 16 years ago after being an engineer, an extensive experience in lots of different businesses. I can't really do it any more justice than to say welcome to the podcast, Finn.
Thank you very much, Luke.
Very recently, Solar Quotes was bought out by Origin. Before that, you had reached 800,000 homes with Solar Quotes. What does that even mean?
That means that over 800,000 homes in Australia had used Solar Quotes to get up to 3 quotes for solar or batteries or EV chargers or solar hot water. So literally gone through the system, got quotes, and a good percentage of those would have gone ahead and bought. So, I mean, there's 10 million homes in Australia, so it's almost up to 1 in 10 homes in Australia have used Solar Quotes. And when I say used, I don't mean used like our competitors use it, which means looked at the website. I mean, actually went through and did the whole process. I think we get about 4 million unique sessions a year in Australia on the Solar Quotes website. So millions and millions of people use the website, if you define using as, using the content or watching the videos or whatever.
I'm probably responsible for several hundred of those, given that I look at it all the time and cut and paste links and post them in other places. Go and refer to this. Saves a lot of talking.
Can you clear something up, Karl? I heard that this is the only hour of the week that you're not on Facebook commenting. Is that true?
Probably. Look at the
You're
end
prolific,
of the day.
mate.
He's multitasking.
It's a huge source of business for us. Getting to people is quite difficult. Advertising of all forms is spectacularly expensive, including my time. But every time I take a couple of weeks off, the volume slows down markedly. So there's definitely a lot of merit in being there.
Now, good on you. You're very good at it.
I look at Solar Quotes now and there's an enormous amount of information there. But what did the early days look like? Was it based on content? Was it just doing the lead gen itself? How did you get it off the ground?
January 2009, we landed in Adelaide, me and my family, in December 2008. I couldn't get a job as an electrical engineer because it was the height of the financial crisis. That and I'm the world's worst employee probably both played a part in it. So I had a bit of a gun to my head. I needed some income. We were renting a little house in Adelaide. So I went into Brighton Public Library here in Brighton, where I still live. And I sat down with my secondhand laptop and I just emptied my brain into some custom HTML pages because I could write software. So I coded up the website from scratch, kind of emptied my brain, into 24 HTML, hand-coded HTML pages, put those up online. And then thought, how am I going to monetize this? Well, I'm going to offer people to get 3 quotes for solar because it was such a young industry. People didn't really know where to go or what to do. So I thought, okay, so I've told them everything I know about solar based from my days in CSIRO, and we literally used to get people phoning up and asking us for advice. A lot of those got put through to me. That was back in the day when it was the $8,000 rebate for 1 kilowatt of solar. You'll remember there were some absolute shonks around. I thought, okay, are people actually is that an offer that people will be up for, to fill out a form and then, forward their details to 3 installers? So I didn't have any installer clients then, but got my credit card out, bought some AdWords just locally in Adelaide and just put AdWords up that said, I can't remember, get 3 quotes for solar and click here, something like that. And within about half an hour, the first email came through that someone had filled in the form and wanted 3 quotes for solar. So then I thought, oh shit, I haven't got any solar installer clients. So I used my best judgment and I went to 3 different solar installers in Adelaide and I filled out their contact form with the person's details. As soon as I'd done that, another one came in, another inquiry came in saying they wanted 3 quotes for solar. So after that had happened about a dozen times, I looked at how much I'd spent in order to get the person to ask for 3 quotes, and the dollars was reasonable, whatever it was. And I thought, oh, okay, so if I sell the leads for say $30 a pop, this could work. So that's how it started. I guess it's your classic, put the thing up before you know it'll work, do some simple cheap tests to kind of reduce the risk, and then go from there. So then I had to recruit clients, right? Had to recruit solar installers. So I went to the Clean Energy Council website. Back then they used to publish a PDF with all the solar installers' emails and phone numbers.
Luke and I have spent a lot of time in that list over the years, and it was hard work.
Yeah, so I got that list, and then I thought, well, I'm not going to email these guys. I'm not going to ring them up because I don't like cold calling. I'm a terrible salesperson. I said, how can I stand out? Like, one of my business kind of rules is do the opposite of everyone else does. So I said, I'm going to send them I'm going to send them letters through the post, personal letters through the post. Because I mean, how many in Adelaide back then? Maybe there was 60 electricians that did solar, 2009, something like that. I don't know. Maybe there was more. I don't know, 60 to 100 on the list in Adelaide. So I did a big mail merge, sent them a letter, and I read a book called The Irresistible Offer. You know, people hate getting cold emails. They don't really like getting cold snail mail, to be honest. But I said, you know, what offer can I make that's irresistible? I said, okay, dear Fred, you know, my name's Peacock. I've started this website, which I think's got useful information on it. Have a look at it here. I've got people coming to me wanting quotes for solar. Here's my offer to you. I will give you 30 free solar leads for absolute free, no obligation. If you don't like the leads, kick me to the curb. You'll never hear from me again. If you do like the leads and you want to get more, pay me $30 each for those leads. And I'll continue to send them to you. So, you know, absolutely zero risk to the installer apart from his time. I sent out 60, 100 letters. I can't remember. I got one response. Paul Channon, Adelaide Solar Systems. Thank you, Paul. Paul is the reason Solar Quotes exists. I don't know what I'd have done if he hadn't responded. I'd probably have kept trying. Paul said, yeah, I'll give you a go. And so we sent Paul 30 leads, followed up with Paul. I said, hey, Paul, how are the leads? He goes, oh, they're all right. Yeah, worth $30 each. Send me your invoice. I was like, yes, invoice number one, $900 to Adelaide Solar Systems. And it went from there, basically. And then it kind of, you know, then we recruited more installs. I think the second client was Solar Wholesalers in Mount Barker. Brilliant. Still a client. Absolutely top guys. And we took it from there. And then it kind of sold itself as, because the quality of the information was, I mean, back then it was crap compared to what it is now, but it was better than anything else that was out there. And people like the tone and the honesty and the fact that you named names. So solar installers saw the adverts, thought, who's this Solar Quotes guy? Clicked on the link, thought, oh, this website's actually quite useful. This could work. And then they started contacting me. So we got going in Adelaide, and then we just rinsed and repeated it. Well, it was just me, just rinsed and repeated in every state and territory around Australia. The second one was New South Wales, and went on from there. That's how I solved the problem of not having any clients or any users or any money. And it was all funded with an American Express card. That was an interesting one, the American Express card. So it started to grow very quickly, and the AdWords bill, you know what AdWords is like. Even back then, it grew exponentially, and I couldn't cash flow it myself because.
And there weren't many players doing the lead gen thing, were there?
No, there wasn't much competition.
People doing AdWords and that sort of thing, but it was more just funneling to single retailers or single businesses.
There was actually, here's a story I've probably not told. So my biggest competitor back then was a Dutch company called TELUS, TELLUS. I don't think they exist anymore. And they'd bought the name. So back in 2009, the standard SEO playbook was that if you have a keyword that you want to go for in SEO, the best domain name is separating the words with a dash. So they'd registered solar-quotes.com.au, but they hadn't registered solarquotes.com.au. So that's how I got solarquotes.com.au. So they were my biggest competitor, these Dutch guys called TELUS. I don't think they're going anymore. But yeah, apart from that, AdWords was a lot easier and a lot cheaper back then. But yeah, to pay the AdWords bill, I looked for a credit card without a spending limit. An American Express Platinum claimed not to have a spending limit, and then hit 50 grand on that within about 2 weeks. And they stopped giving me any more money. And I rang them up and said, what's happened? They said, you hit your spending limit. I said, you said there wasn't a spending limit. And then they lifted it again. So yeah, it was all funded with American Express to start with.
And what point do you think your content really changed to be similar to what we see now? Because I note also with your YouTube channel, there's an enormous amount of views, and it appears it's not just the Australian people who are watching it. It's a global thing. It's actually really big. So what point did you look at your content and say, hey, I'm happy with this?
Yeah, well, if you want to laugh, go and look at the first YouTube video. It's absolutely horrendous, but it's pretty funny. I mean, I haven't deleted any of them. It's one of those things. It's if you just make it a little bit better every day, at some point you turn around and go, oh, actually, it's all right. Our content's actually pretty good.
Now, before we introduced you, Karl mentioned about seeing the numbers from the Clean Energy Regulator and saying that they're down. In terms of lead volumes, have you seen that change in the last couple of years? Because anecdotally, we hear from installers that leads are down, whereas the other argument is that there's more people taking the chunk out of that pie. I know when I open social media, you've got some influencer or someone talking about solar leads, and they're probably in Canggu digital nomads, but they're paying for the advertising, building these leads up. So there's a lot more competition in that space. Do you think there's less leads out there, or is it just being spread across so many more lead gen platforms?
The internet's generally winner take most, and there's lead gen and there's lead gen, right? So anyone can generate a lead. It's quite hard to generate a high quality lead at a price that's profitable. So that's the difference. So we're on the leading edge. I mean, we look at our volumes. Solar Quotes last 5 years has consistently grown 20% every year. As soon as the market drops, we'll see it immediately because we're right at the beginning of the cycle. December, January, February, we're very slow. It's starting to pick up now. Yeah, there's more people competing for the leads, but the market's pretty buoyant. It goes up and down, but it's going like that. People getting bigger solar and people getting batteries and EV chargers and heat pumps. It's fine. It's just the economy is quite depressed at the moment. What's really helped is the recent press around electricity prices going up, because for the previous 12 months, it's been about electricity prices going down, and that for obvious reasons. We find our volumes are very driven by what the media says about electricity prices.
Yeah, well, on that note, it's very much a worry seeing the opinion polls for the opposition and the unwavering support for nuclear. It seems to be a fair amount of misinformation out there from its supporters. What are your thoughts there, Finn?
I love nuclear. Absolutely love nuclear. I worked in nuclear. It was my first proper job. I designed boiler control systems for HM1 nuclear power station in the UK. I think it's absolutely brilliant technology. I think it's clean. I love the fact that it creates highly paid engineering jobs. And I've got an opinion piece going out on the blog tomorrow that also says one will never, ever, ever get built in Australia. Peter Dutton has no idea what's involved in building a nuclear power station. It's insanely complicated to get the planning, to put the regulatory stuff around it, to build it, to commission it, to run it, to fuel it. Australia's never done anything like it. And I'm not getting at Australian engineers. I'm just getting at the fact that you need decades of experience and it's still hard. If Dutton wins and he spends billions on feasibility studies for nuclear, don't care. That one will never get built in Australia. So, basically what my column tomorrow says, it's pointless talking about it because it's never going to happen even if Dutton wins.
That's a point Nigel's been making too on the podcast. We have discussed it previously, and he said it's a red herring. There's never any intention to build them, and Dutton will never have to build them, but it's about what happens in the near term. To me, it seems like a backward step. You remember the old fable about Pandora's box, and once you open the box, you just can't get it all back in there. That's really where we're at with energy. It isn't about building nuclear, I agree, and I don't understand technically all about it, Finn, but coming from someone like yourself who is a professional in the field and has been involved in renewables, it seems ludicrous to me.
I have no idea what's involved. It's insane. It's brilliant if you can build them. Australia can't build them, man. We don't need to. If what will happen is what happened here in SA with the hydrogen power station that was never going to get built. They'll hire a bunch of bureaucrats, pay them loads of money, create a new department. They might even go as far as buying some hardware, and then one day they'll wake up and go, oh yeah, we're not going to build it, which is exactly what's just happened in South Australia with hydrogen. And hydrogen's a piece of cake compared to nuclear.
So what's the solution then, Finn? If you had the reins tomorrow, how would you structure the energy policy?
Just keep building the renewables and don't worry about curtailment. And the way the storage costs are going, we'll have plenty of storage and it will be backed up by gas. We'll use a little bit of gas and that's fine. We'll have a big gas capacity and we won't use very much of it.
It's interesting that Dutton's argument is that you can't get enough batteries and that a battery only lasts 4 hours. I think he missed the other side, which is if we've got enough renewables to do the job, we actually need 9 times the renewables that we've got right now, and you need a lot less storage once you've got 9 times more renewables on the grid. And all of these, there was a lot of talk about base load as well. I think base load's a myth. We've got 20 million cars on the road to convert to electric, and that's absolutely a flexible demand. You don't have to charge them at a particular time. We can do it whenever the wind's blowing or whenever the sun's shining, you know?
I wanted to jump in, Finn. I know that, we talked about how you used to do nuclear, which I didn't know. That's very interesting. And obviously you've been really involved in the renewable space for a long time now. I know sustainability is something that's quite important to you. I remember one of the first things I heard about you in Solar Quotes was that you had a hay bale house, which is just incredible and amazing. What draws you to those sorts of things and really investing in them personally as well?
Good question. Well, I've always been a greenie. It's just about sustainability. Sustainability for me is about autonomy. The most important thing for me and my family's life is autonomy.
from like a self-sufficiency perspective?
I mean, freedom to not be dependent on other people, not in a kind of conspiracy theory way, just to make your own decisions. And if you're degrading the environment, then you've got less environment to go mountain biking or hiking in. If you're dependent on Saudi Arabia for your oil, then you've got less autonomy. So it just always, I love the environment. I love autonomy. I'm a numbers person, an engineers person. Sustainability just makes sense. So it's just been the obvious choice, really. Why do I live in a straw house? Because compared to any other house I've been in Australia, it's just rarely comfortable. It's warm in winter and it's cool in summer with almost no air conditioning or heating. Personally, I like the look. It's a bit too agricultural for some, but I prefer it to the old white walls and a box. So it just intuitively makes sense to me, and it's the right thing to do. And I think it's very important to do the right thing in life.
Finn, I'd like to go back to Origin. What was their motivation to get solar quotes, and what are their plans for the future?
Good question. So December the 1st, 2024, Origin, the assets of solar quotes were sold to Origin. So Origin own solar quotes 100% now. I'm not an Origin employee. I've got no earnout. I'm working for them on an hourly rate, basically consulting, still making videos until we can find someone else to make them. Having said that, if anyone listening to this wants to make videos for solar quotes instead of me, send us a video, because we're looking for other presenters, so we're not just dependent on me. So
no, I want to be rude and go on a tangent here, Finn. So in recent episodes, we did a winner podcast competition, and we were asking for submissions for people basically saying we will give you a podcast, we'll do all the hosting, we'll give you the equipment, come to the Smart Energy Expo in Sydney, record your episode, and the best episode wins. Do you know how many submissions we got?
I can tell you.
0.
That's interesting. Why do you think that is?
It was a bit of a quirky sort of idea. I'm sure that there's people out there who will be able to do great videos, could do a better podcast, and maybe they'll pop up.
Anyway, so back to Origin. So, where that all starts is 12 months ago. So about March 2024, me and my wife, Chantel, who were the sole owners of Solar Quotes, because we've never had any investment or anything, decided that we wanted to look into selling it. The reason for that was after 16 years of it's a lot of responsibility. We've got 600 installer clients. As I said, we've got nearly 1 million Australians who've used the service in anger. Tens of thousands of pages of content, much of which is controversial, and we get legal letters fairly regularly.
How do you deal with legal letters typically?
Know the law. The first thing you do is if someone sends you a legal threat and it's not from a lawyer, ignore it, or reply to them and say, look, if you're serious, come back with a letter from a real lawyer, please. If someone sends you a letter and you've done the wrong thing, like you've made a mistake, all our content, the rule is it needs to be true and it needs to not be misleading. And that's it, because you can write the truth but still be misleading, right? Depending on how you frame it. We don't want to be misleading and we want to tell the truth, and that's it. But we know that we're entitled to an opinion. It's got to be an opinion that's backed up with evidence, and then you're on very strong ground. So you've got to know the law. And once you get a few of these things, you learn how it works. The big manufacturers want to scare, they just try and scare the shit out of you. So you take it down because they want to control the narrative about their products. And in a conservative industry like electrical hardware, you get someone like Ronald Brackles writing a tongue-in-cheek piece about how bad their warranty is and absolutely ripping into them in a kind of funny way, and they take it really badly. So they'll send you a letter saying take this down immediately. So you'll go back. You can go back and say, sorry, what's the problem with the article? Tell me what's incorrect or misleading or both. And they'll go, we just don't like the tone. And we'll say, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's quite good that we've got a library of.
Well, some of it's a little bit clickbaity too, I have to say. The ones that you said, particularly the ones
Give me an
you said on
example.
socials.
The one about warranties on heat pumps. That's definitely clickbaity.
What's the definition of clickbait?
Controversial. It implies that heat pumps are shit, and that's just not the
So
case.
what's the headline? So what's the bait for the click?
Oh, good question. I'd have to look at it again.
Are
But
there some heat pumps with crap warranties?
no, not really. I think that all heat pumps are good heat pumps. I mean, the one that you rated.
Yeah, but are there warranties? Are there some really short warranties on on some components of some heat pumps?
Yeah, that's true.
No, that's a crap warranty. Clickbait is when you say something in the title. It's like bait and switch. It's when you say something in the headline and you don't deliver it in the body of the article or the video.
Maybe I've got a different definition of clickbait then, Finn, because it's just something that sort of jumps out at you and you click on that may have tones of controversy or a different point of view or something else.
Right?
Provocative. Perfect
Yeah.
word,
Well, you've got to get some
provocative
people to
title.
click.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with a provocative title as
That's
long as
right.
the video or
Great.
the article follows up on what you're saying. What's the point of writing an article if no one reads it? It should be provocative. It should go for the click, but it's got to deliver what the headline promises.
I've got two. So I remember it was a long while ago, like more than a year ago, but I think it was a particularly spicy article to use to try and use good language, in the sense that it like published pricing. I think it was for Powerwall specifically at the time, but in terms of really shaking things up and cutting through a lot of the fat in the industry by not being afraid to, like you said earlier, name names or just sort of put the retail price of a product. And then it does leave installers in the position of having to explain, oh, well, we need to pay someone to go and install that and that kind of thing. How do you feel on that side of those sorts of articles?
What, publishing the retail price that Tesla already have on their website?
But it's just an example. I know that sort of thing has happened a few times.
No, just the consumer. Like the retail price is generally the wholesale price plus about 30%. And we always say this is the hardware only, and then you've got to get it installed.
Now I start with an apology, Finn, because I took us on the tangent. We were in the origin story, and you were talking about the big volume of content that you have and legal letters.
But anyway, yeah, legal's just one part of the responsibilities, but a lot of responsibility. You've got 20 employees, you've got 600 installers, you've got thousands of people a month going through the system, and we take our recommendations very seriously. So there's a lot of responsibility for many years, and we just wanted to give that responsibility to someone else. It was time to do something else. So we decided to dip our toes in the water, put out on the grapevine that solar quotes might be up for sale, talk to a lot of people, everyone from private equity through to much better known names. And then we got a bunch of offers after all the due diligence and lots of lawyers. And we chose Origin's offer. It was not the highest offer by a long way, but it was the offer that we liked the most. The big one for me was that they were the only one that didn't want an earn out from me. So, because as I've said, I'm the world's worst employee. Origin don't want me as an employee. I'm absolutely terrible. I just got a big gob and I don't respond well to having a boss. So they were really cool. Like, to be honest, when we first heard that Origin wanted to talk to us, well, when I first heard, they said, oh, Origin's interested in the presentation. I was like, yeah, nah, not selling to those guys.
Because I suppose you're invested in maintaining the integrity of the business. You've got so much invested in it personally that you don't want to hand it over to someone who's just going to drive it into a wall.
It's my baby. It's like having a kid. Like, I don't own any of it anymore, but I care deeply about it doing well. And obviously the staff and the installers and the consumers that use it. Like, I really, really care because it's my baby and I've nurtured it over 16 years, a bit like a real child. So originally I was like, nah, Origin, nah, you're all right. They're just big, evil, big energy. And I think like most people, like any kind of big company, we have a very shallow image of what they're like. It's run by big fat guys in suits with cigars that just want to screw the consumer. That's like, the general kind of shallow view if you don't think about it too much. But the person I was using to help me sell the company said, oh, look, give him a chance. So we met the guys from Origin and we talked to them. And you know what? When you actually meet the people that are running the retail business and you talk to them, you get a good feel for them, right? And it's not like this with all big companies. Some of them, you meet the executives and you're like, ugh. And I'm not just saying this because I sold to Origin, because it's the other way around. I sold to Origin because they're like this, like really sound people. They said, hey, Finn, what do you want from this sale? Blah, blah, I said, well, I want you to leave it alone. I said, I don't want you to consume it into the wider Origin business. I want all the staff to be able to move over. I want them to have their own employment contracts, not Origin employment contracts, yada, 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 yada. The other thing was, of course, that Origin had their own solar retail business as well back then. So I was like, well, that's not going to work. They were like, look, we're actually going to stop selling solar because, hands up, we're not very good at it. And we've lost a lot of money doing it over many years.
Yeah, there's no money in it. It's a mug.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Solar goes the 101.
So why Origin wanted solar quotes was because, a year ago, they had the plan to stop solar retailing, but they've got 4-point-something million customers, many of whom want to get solar batteries, EV chargers, heat pumps, electrify their homes basically. And they still want to help those people. I mean, that's the altruistic bit. They want to help those people do that. Ideally, with solar quotes, it's actually a profitable thing to do to help them, not a cost. It's a profit center, not a cost center. But, absolutely they want, if they do a good thing by those consumers, helping them get the battery and the solar, then the hope there is that obviously they'll be more inclined to choose Origin as their energy retailer. Absolutely. No one's going to be forced to do it. But Origin do want to, do really good deals with the solar quotes installers that they can offer people that they've found through solar quotes. We used to get grumblings from our clients, and I'm sure you've heard them, that when they were competing with Origin in the solar space, that how do we compete with Origin? Because they say if they go with Origin, they'll get an extra 10 cents feed-in tariff or whatever the number is. Well, we can offer that unfair advantage to our clients now. They can get the exclusive feed-in tariff from Origin if they go through solar quotes. And the other thing, of course, is to shut the coal-fired power stations down, which everyone in Origin in the executive level wants to do. They're just like us. They absolutely want a clean energy future for their kids, but they've still got to supply the energy because they're a gentailer. They need a lot more loads under orchestration. If they've been involved in the process of helping the person get solar or batteries or whatever, or even EV charger is a big one as well, of course, then they can put an offer to them at some point saying, look, how about joining our VPP? How about joining our EV plan? So that's really important for Origin. And I'm sure all the gentailers is building up their loads under orchestration, so they got that flexible load. So that's what was in it for Origin. And to be fair, Origin have kept all their promises. They're running solar quotes at arm's length. They haven't subsumed them. Every single member of staff chose to sign a new contract, which was basically exactly the same employment contract as they had before, but under a different entity. They haven't hurt the brand. I've got a license. So in terms of my name and my image, I basically license that to Origin. So if they do the wrong thing, like buy LPG because Finn Peacock's favorite gas, they're not, obviously I can say, oh, guys, they're not going to do that. They're good guys, but I have control obviously over my name and image. Yeah.
So you're legally trademarked.
Finn Peacock is a trademark, yeah. And my face is a trademark.
So
That's a funny quirk of the position, isn't it?
We've had some pretty good tangents. I have to jump into that tangent. You mentioned orchestration of EV chargers. I've always thought that's a really big thing and that's not been touted out there in the market as much as it should be. Can you tell us your thoughts?
Well, it's massive, isn't it? I mean, you guys know all this, but if everyone comes home at 6 o'clock and plugs their EV charger in and it starts charging immediately, the grid's screwed. And we also have a problem with excess load in the grid. So if the retailers can have control over cars that are plugged in the day and get them to charge to soak up that negative electricity prices, that's great. Yeah, so that's huge for people like Origin.
So was it Origin that just bought out Charge HQ recently?
Amber.
That was Amber.
Origin have got an interesting plan where and I'm not trying to sell this to anyone. In fact, I'll tell you a problem with it in a minute. But I really like their plan where essentially, it only works with Teslas, unfortunately, because they've got to understand the state of the battery of the car, through the Tesla API. But if you've got a Tesla and you're in the Origin plan, the promise is that you tell them how much battery you want at what time in the morning, and they guarantee you'll have it, and they guarantee you'll only pay 8 cents a kilowatt hour for all the energy that goes in there. So that's quite nice from the consumer because they get that certainty. One problem that has been reported in the last couple of weeks is that you were getting people at Tesla superchargers. They were plugging in to charge for their long trip and it was refusing to charge because the Origin thing was saying, no, we don't want you to charge at the moment because electricity is too expensive. So it sounds to me like there's a bug where it didn't realize that the car wasn't at home.
And there must be some sort of override if you
you'd hope so, wouldn't
to the
you?
plan.
Bloggers are looking into it, see what the problem is. But it's just an example of an unexpected problem as things get more complicated. Totally solvable, but very, very frustrating for the EV owner, right?
Does it support multiple vehicles, Finn? Because that was my problem with the Charge HQ. It really doesn't support multiple vehicles.
Yeah, it really struggles,
well.
Really,
Yeah.
I've got that problem, especially when you've got two vehicles that aren't Tesla. One, I've got a Mini and a Tesla, but anyway, I don't know if the Origin plan supports multiple Teslas. I don't know.
I've heard of similar conflicts when you have like flexible exports and Amber, for example, where it's a fight for control over curtailing. So it's very interesting. I think there's probably some infrastructure that's needed there as the Australia-wide rollout is on its way for that.
So we just put in an OCPP, actually a SIG Energy AC charger at Jono, our marketing manager's house, or Solar Quotes marketing manager's house, and we were trying to get that to just charge off excess solar, but because he's also got Amber's curtailing the solar because the electricity's cheap. So Charge HQ doesn't see any excess solar, so it refuses to charge off excess solar. So all these bloody problems when you've got multiple ecosystems all fighting for the excess solar, or one's trying to constrain it, and one's trying to use it. There's a lot of issues.
This is a tricky thing. I chose OVO as my retailer. They've got free power 11 till 2. So I just light up absolutely everything that I possibly can and squeeze my entire day's worth of energy consumption into that 3-hour window, whether I'm generating solar or not. Ultimately, that has to be, well, you see it in the network price. It changes between 10.55 and 11.05 because everybody's pushed the throttle to the wall and we're using some power. It's great.
Well, my advice to everyone at the moment is just timers, man. Just get on a decent tariff where you can just rely on a simple timer instead of having to, put a CT to measure this and then this to measure the electricity price. And then, yeah, like you say, as soon as it hits 11 o'clock, bang, 15 kilowatts, let's go.
32.
Oh, sorry. I'm an amateur.
Well, that is a problem. So that's a good question too, Finn. What is it? 80% of the East Coast grid is single phase. How do you have an all-electric Australia if you've got single phase power? I mean, just can't see how Victorians can put a big enough solar system on their house with single phase.
Yeah, well, you either upgrade to three phase or it's a combination of big solar, big battery, and dynamic load management, I guess.
And the holy grail of automation behind all of that, so you're not flicking things off and on the whole time.
Hey, Finn, I just wanted to know, I feel like I could guess what your thoughts and feelings are on this, but how do you feel about AI in terms of writing articles, making videos, spreading misinformation? What are your thoughts and feelings there?
Oh, how long have we got?
That's good for 5 minutes. Let's go.
Just in the last little bit,
So you're seeing it already, okay? So one of Solar Quotes' big advantage is it's got a lot of high quality content and that rises to the top of the search engines and it builds trust and yada, yada, yada. And now, as predicted, the internet is full of AI generated slop, right? The really interesting thing about writing, so we don't write articles with AI, but we do use AI to help us write articles, which is very, very different. You ask AI to write you an article about solar, because there's so many lead generators on the internet for solar that are already written crap articles by third-party people that don't know anything about solar. It ingests all that and then gives you a really crap article because, garbage in, garbage out. Even if it's looking at good information, it'll often take information from America or the UK and apply it to Australia.
So it's artificial groupthink. It's collating the good, but all the shit that's been put there on other platforms. So it's going to just continue that contamination.
It's absolute crap. And you're building more crap for the, it's like a vicious circle.
Finn's an engineer, so there isn't going to be a huge correlation with AI because currently AI is shit at maths. And
but if you have, okay, I'll give this one to you. So if you input a manual into a language learning model and then you input fault codes and all that sort of stuff, in theory, you could run level 1, level 2 tech support because this is black and white. This isn't about opinion. This is very much, right, you have this fault code and then it can talk you through it.
Yeah, absolutely. No. So, Karl, I push back on that. Like, if you use AI badly, you get absolute crap. And the internet is filling up rapidly with AI-generated slop about everything, including solar. Human beings aren't stupid, and the good content kind of rises to the top, and people can pick it out. But you should definitely be leveraging AI. So one of the things we do is we've created our own AI LLM that's only trained on Solar Quotes content. And so our customer service people, when they get a Zendesk ticket, the AI presents an answer that helps. And it's always edited or cited by a human being that knows their stuff, but it saves them massive amount of time because 80% of the time, because it's trained on good stuff, it gives a really good answer.
So that's another Pandora's box then. So what about competing companies that steal the material for their language learning models from their competitors? I mean, it's a legal frontier.
Yeah, I don't know what you can do about that, really. You've just got to stay ahead. But I'd love to see installers using it more, but in a good way. So the worst way to use it is to put AI-generated images of solar panels on your Facebook page.
Yeah.
Like, that's how to kill trust with the consumer.
But what's worse, Finn, is it doing the AI-generated one, or is it pulling out those stock pictures that are on half the websites in Australia that have been doing the rounds for 20 years? Yeah, that guy standing on the panels.
Standing on the bloody panels.
Standing on the bloody panels. So don't use it that way. But there's lots of ways you can use it to, write case studies and follow up with customers and even get it. The way I use AI is I have conversations with it. I just bounce ideas off it. I get it to critique my writing. I get it to, if you're sending a email to a consumer, just put it through AI and say, hey, how can I make this more persuasive? Or if I'm really angry with someone, I'll bang out an email and then I'll tell AI to, make it polite and persuasive instead of put it across as a dickhead. Because, and it's just a really good filter for stuff like that. Or just to be more persuasive or just to be more concise. It can be very, very useful if you use it right.
We've been using it lately to get it to write processes for us, for like when we're training new staff, because everything's super consistent and everything looks formatted exactly the same. There's lots of like little things like that can cut out a lot of time, admin time.
Yeah, if you're an installer and you want to do a case study for every single job you do, on the way home when you're driving, just put on your voice recorder and just brain dump everything that was interesting about that install into the voice recorder. And then when you get home, just tell it to turn that into a case study, give it a light edit. And you do that every day, and you're going to have dozens of really good case studies that are unique because it's using the information that's come out of your head. AI doesn't know what you did on site that day unless you tell it. Like no one else's AI knows that. Take a couple of pictures while you're there, and suddenly you get this incredible proof that you're out there every day doing good installs, thinking about your work, and it's taking you almost no time to do it.
The very best salespeople in the industry do exactly that. They rock up at someone's house. They've got a folder of those case studies. And they say, your house looks like this. This is what you should expect. This is what we've done before. Customer trusts you. You've got the data. You've got the example. Bang, sale.
Getting the case studies and building them and consistently building them, that's where AI can massively speed that up. Yeah. And it's very, very, very powerful. I mean, my one bit of advice would be spend that $20 a month on a paid ChatGPT subscription. Go into the settings, flick the switch that says they're not allowed to use your data for training. That's really important. But then it gets to know you and you talk to it every day. You have conversations with it. You give it your problems. You ask it for solutions and the thing gets to know you. And it's like having a co-founder that you can bounce ideas off, that is a brilliant writer, that can do your research for you. It's the best $20 a month you'll ever spend. Don't use the free one.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap this up shortly. I feel like we're just warming up.
That's pretty good advice, Vin. Luke's going to ask you about what you do to switch off.
Carl's going to ask you.
Well, Karl, I think you just asked him. Why do I have to ask him?
I'm dying to know, Finn. So at the end of the day, obviously there's been a desire to switch off because you desire to move away from the business and do something else. And obviously running a business that has that many clients and so on and so forth, I'm guessing it just absolutely never, ever stops. It's 24 hours a day. So that makes it hard to switch off.
I go mountain biking. That's my thing. I can hit the mountain bike trails, which luckily start 2.5 kilometers from my front door.
Electric bike, manual bike?
I have got an electric bike. Well, I've got a few bikes, but 8 of them are not non-electric. One of them's electric. But I mostly ride the non-electric ones. We'll see if that changes as I get older.
There's a new, well, relatively new as of the last few years, bike track in Brighton as well. But is that a bit of a different kettle of fish?
That's a pump track. So that's
pump track, yeah.
Yeah, you go around and use your arms as much as your legs. So that's a pump track. Yeah, I've been involved with that. But yeah, I generally ride the cross country and downhill trails in Halloran Hill, which is now called Glenthorne National Park.
Gonna have to wrap it up, so we'll go for last thoughts. Start with you, Jess.
Just super insightful. It was excellent to learn so much about Origin. I think, you do get a very specific perspective of what you kind of expect for them. So yeah, it's really interesting to hear the other side of the coin. And I'm interested to see how things go because as I understand it, Origin is still selling leads to installers, which might be the same installers who are buying Solar Quotes leads. So that would be a really interesting comparison. But yeah, otherwise really excited to be in Sydney in a couple of weeks. Hope to see a whole bunch of people there.
Smart Energy Conference. Did we mention the dates? 9th and 10th of April. All right, Karl.
I love having a guest where I can have a bit of a spa. It's good fun to have someone who's got so much experience in the industry and inspires others to do better. And obviously given us some great advice today. One of those episodes that goes in my personal top 10. Great to have Finn on the show. Other than that, I think we have to go out there and tell people that they need to get political and not vote for the Liberal Party because it's going to go sideways. And even if it doesn't end up with nuclear power stations being built, we're going to blow a shitload of money doing all kinds of crap that we know is just simply better spent putting solar on people's roofs.
Yeah, and I'd just like to echo Karl's thoughts, Finn. Huge admiration for you. I've heard it said something along the lines of there's very, very few in the industry who have found the success and had such an impact on the industry without ever having to lift a solar panel. So congrats on your success and everything else. And good to have a chat, man.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Exactly. It is a compliment. And just want to also say, we'll be in Sydney for the conference and we're also doing the live show there. Hopefully any of you people who enjoy listening to us, like interacting with the content, come along because we'll probably have a roving mic to throw out there and you can jump on that particular episode as well. Finn Peacock from Solar Quotes, thanks again for coming on. It's been an excellent chat. I just wanted you to give a macro quick fire on where you see the industry going in the next 10 years.
In the next 10 years, it's all going to be about ecosystems. It's going to be about getting the solar, the battery, the EV charger. I'm not going to say heat pump because that's a piece of cake. That really is a timer. And the grid all working together and not fighting each other. And that's going to be the real challenge. I mean, the easiest solution for most is to use the same ecosystem for all those things. Obviously, the grid's different. That's going to be the challenge. If you just take in, brand X battery, brand Y inverter, brand Z EV charger, despite, standards like OCPP, they're still going to fight each other. And there's going to be all these things you haven't thought of. So the real differentiator in the future is getting really good at one or two ecosystems and making those work. And that will really make you stand apart from the retired cricketers as well.
Well, thanks again for coming on, Finn. And thanks to you for listening. Look forward to catching up with all of you in Sydney in a couple of weeks for the conference. And remember to subscribe, like, share, whichever platform you're on, and we'll catch you next time.